Hello again. So apparently I'm good for every other day, not every day, because you know, life just kind of has happened a lot over this last little bit. But back to reading the Bear Scouts and the Run-Amuck robot. I'm on chapter 6, and just another little insert that this is being done with permission from Scholastic because of the COVID crisis. So I can share, record and share this for the time being, but it will not be available forever. So, anyways, chapter 6: To spy or not to spy. The professor may have been all ears, heart, and soul, but when he heard the plan, he knew it wouldn't work. The plan was for the Bear Scouts and Lady Grizzly to reopen the museum while he and Gus finished their secret invention. He thought the idea of the Bear Scouts serving as junior descents was fine. The Bear Scouts knew the Bearsonian very well, especially Fred, who not only read the dictionary just for fun, but the encyclopedia as well. But there was no way the museum could be reopened right away, even with the help of the Bear Scouts. Go see for yourselves, said Actual Factual. The Scouts fanned out through the museum. They were discouraged by what they found. It's even worse than the professor said Brother, when they reported back to Lady Grizzly. Not only does the place need a top to bottom cleaning, but some of the exhibits are missing. Exhibits missing, said Lady Grizzly. Yes, the Tesla coil for one, said Fred. That's the big machine that makes lightning. And the static electricity machine too, said Sister. That's the one that makes your fur stand on end, said Lizzie. Things are worse than I expected, said Lady Grizzly. And I'm really worried about the professor. At this point, you gotta think, what was being foreshadowed in that little spot there? Give you a chance to look at the pictures. Me too, said Sister. He's beginning to look like one of those mad scientists you see in spooky movies. Nevertheless, said Lady Grizzly, I think we should stay with our plan. We just have to beef it up. Here's what we'll do. I'll go back to the mansion and pick up some of my household staff. I'll donate them to the Bearsonian for as long as it takes to clean up the place. Here's what I want you to do. Find out what Professor's up to. Find out about this secret invention of his. You mean you want us to spy on our good friend, Professor Actual Factual, who trusts us, said Brother. Exactly, said Lady Grizzly. We'll do it, said Brother. Chapter 7, Gus's Trail. Lady Grizzly's part of the plan was working out well. After only a couple days, her staff had the Bearsonian looking almost like a museum again. But the Bear Scouts were having no success in finding out what the professor was up to. They thought they knew the Bearsonian pretty well, but the professor was nowhere to be found. He had dropped completely out of sight. The Scouts looked in every nook. They searched in every cranny. He must be working on that invention someplace in the museum, said Brother. Yes, said Fred, in some secret place that only he knows about. Wait, said Sister. Change that to someplace that only he and Gus know about. Hey, that's right, said Fred. Gus has got to know. He was the one who said, it's time to prepare for the tests when we were in that spooky little room. Then he went down some steps. Do you think we can find that little room? Said Sister. I hope not, said Lizzie. There's Lady Grizzly's staff working on the museum. Chapter 8, Into the Bowels of the Bearsonian. So I asked my kids when I read this to them, what do bowels mean? If you don't know, you should look it up. It didn't take the Scouts long to find the spooky basement room, but it took them quite a while to get up enough nerve to go down the stairs. The fact that they were winding stairs didn't help. The Scouts were huddled at the top of the stairs trying to look down, but it's just as hard to do it's just as hard to look down a winding staircase as it is to describe one without moving your hands. I'm scared, said Lizzie. Why should you be any different from the rest of us, said Brother. How do we know the professor is down there, asked Fred. We don't, said Sister, but we know something's down there because that's where Gus went when he said the tests were ready. Look, gang, said Brother, I know it's scary, but we've got to go down there. The professor's done a lot for us. If he's going over the edge, it's up to us to save him from himself. So with Brother leading the way, the Bear Scouts started their descent into the bowels of the Bearsonian. Down, down they went. The staircase was dark and narrow. Its stone walls were rough and damp. Do you know something, said Fred. I've read up on the Bearsonian. It wasn't built all at once. I bet this part was the oldest. Later, Fred, said Brother. How does Fred know all that stuff? There's them going on a staircase. As the stairs wound down, it got darker and darker, but now there was a flickering light and a crackling sound, and a strange smell. What's that funny smell, said Lizzie. It's kind of familiar. It's ozone, said Fred. It's that smell you get before a storm. It comes from lightning. The light, the sound, and the smell were getting stronger when suddenly the stairway opened onto a vast dungeon-like room. What the scouts saw below was far beyond the wildest, mad scientist scene they could ever have imagined. That all the Bear Scouts could do was stare in silent shock. Now, I had considered stopping after this chapter, but because of the title, this can be scary for little kids for, a chapter. I'm going to read 2 chapters just to make sure. Chapter 9, The Body Beneath the Cloth. What the scouts saw below the great underground room bathed in a blood-red glow. What the scouts saw down below was a great underground room bathed in a blood-red glow. The stairs went down to a stone floor, but the terrified scouts huddled on a ledge that curved around the seam like a crude balcony. The shaken scouts inched their way along the edge and tried to make sense of what they were seeing. What did they see? Let me just show that to you guys again. Because one of the things about reading, one of the reading skills that we hope people grow up to have is predicting. Now we saw something here. What do we know about this book though? Remember the title? The red glow came from a row of lights spaced along the top of a control board that curved around the back wall of the cavernous room. The flashing and crackling came from a huge coil that stood behind the professor and Gus. Good grief! It was the missing Tesla coil. How did it get down there? They must have taken it apart and brought it down there piece by piece. Oh, yes. The professor and Gus were there, though it was difficult to recognize them in their leather aprons and dark goggles. And there was the missing static electricity machine, too. But it was the thing that stood before the professor that burned itself into the brains of the terrified Bear Scouts. It was a high table. On it was a body beneath a heavy cloth. If you look at Professor, what is that look on his face? I asked my kids to think about that. What is that look? Look, hissed Fred. I see, hissed Brother in return. What's that clicking noise, whispered Sister. It's my teeth chattering, said Lizzie. The professor turned a dial. The crackling got louder. The huge coil began to glow. It's just like that old book, said Fred. The one about Dr. Frankenbear. Not now, Fred, said Brother. You know, said Fred, he was the one who wanted to create life. He tried to make a person out of parts of dead bears. Please, Fred, said Sister. Only it turned out to be a monster with a bolt through its neck, said Fred. We know, said Lizzie. And he did it with electricity, said Fred. The crackling sound was now continuous. The coil glowed red. The stench of ozone filled the air. Gus had begun cranking the handle of the static electricity machine. Now he was cranking it faster and faster. The scouts could feel the electricity in their fur. The professor gave the big dial another turn. A pale blue tongue of electricity reached out of the glowing coil. Then another turn, and the blue tongue zapped the body beneath the cloth. Nothing happened. The body beneath the cloth lay perfectly still. Thank goodness, whispered Brother. Whatever he was trying to do, it didn't work. Come on, let's get out of here while the getting's good. The scouts began inching back along the ledge. They simply had to escape from this awful place. But there was some kind of ruckus going on down below. Gus and the professor were arguing. Actual Factual was reaching for the master switch. Gus was trying to stop him. Professor, no, cried Gus. You'll fry us all. But the professor wouldn't be stopped. He reached up and threw the master switch. The room went white with a blinding light. Jagged bolts of lightning split the air. Zap, zap, zap. And there before the Bear Scouts' very eyes, the body beneath the cloth sat up. Chapter 10, Come On Down. As amazed as the scouts were by what they'd just seen, they were even more startled by what happened next. Professor Actual Factual and Gus tore off their aprons and goggles, grasping each other's hands and dancing wildly around the room, hooting and hollering at the top of their lungs. With his head thrown back, the professor saw the Bear Scouts staring down from the ledge. Well, bless me if it isn't my friends, the Bear Scouts, he cried. Delighted to see you. Come on down. I'd like you to meet someone. With that, he lifted the heavy cloth and put his arm around the shoulders of his latest invention. How would you feel if that was you, if you were a Bear Scout? Dr. Frankenbear's monster may have had a bolt through its neck, but Professor Actual Factual's monster was all bolts. Nuts and bolts, that is. Nuts, bolts, gears, wires, batteries, computer chips, steel tubing, tubing. Everything, as the saying goes, but the kitchen sink. And perhaps even some sink parts as well. In other words, Actual Factual's monster wasn't a monster at all. It was a robot. A grinning, light bulb-eyed, nuts and bolts robot. He was rather bear-shaped in a robotic sort of way, with a squarish head, a tubular muzzle, a great metallic chest, jutting hips, swivel-jointed arms and legs, and claw-like hands and feet. Scout, said the professor, I'd like you to meet Robo. Robo, said the scouts. What do you think Robo could mean? Yes, it's short for Robot of All Work, explained the professor. Are you saying that Robo can do all different kinds of work, said Brother. That's what I'm saying, said the professor. But how can that be, asked Fred. As you can guess, said Actual Factual, that's a very complicated question. For the time being, let me say that Robo contains more information than the entire contents of the Bear Country Library. He is voice activated and will respond to any instruction that matches his program. Let me show you. Robo, said Actual Factual. Shake hands with and say hello to my friends, the Bear Scouts. Be gentle now. This is Scout Brother. Hello, Scout Brother, said Robo as he reached down and shook hands with Brother. Hello, Robo, said Brother. As Actual Factual went down the line and introduced the scouts by name, Robo greeted and shook hands with each scout. As you can guess, the Bear Scouts were really impressed. That was very good, Robo, said the professor. You showed my friends how gentle you can be. Actual Factual picked up a chunk of rock that had broken off the wall. Now show them how strong you are, Robo. Crush this rock. He placed the rock in Robo's claw-like hand. Robo gripped the rock, then squeezed. It crumbled like a cookie. Wow, said Brother. Amazing, said Fred. Awesome, said Lizzie. What's next for Robo? Asked Sister. What are your plans? Plans are something I have to think about, said the professor. But what's next is getting Robo up these winding steps. It turned out to be easier said than done. When the professor said, Robo, climb stairs, Robo climbed all right, but he climbed straight ahead. No problem, said the professor. Robo is going to have some gaps and glitches. The fact is, we forgot to program Robo for winding stairs. The professor and Gus got Robo up the winding stairs, but it took some doing. They managed by saying, Robo, climb one step and turn right 7 degrees, then repeating the instruction over and over. Wow, that's me a lot of times. By the time they reached the top, Robo's eyes had begun to flash red. Why are Robo's eyes flashing? Asked Lizzie. It's just a minor overheating problem, said Actual Factual. Nothing to worry about. But the problem Robo had with the winding staircase was just a small hint of the trouble that lay ahead. So there's a little bit of foreshadowing in that chapter, and it's not very subtle. So let's see if you can think of what might happen. See if you can predict. Chapter 11 is called Professor, Professor, Come Quick. And I will read again to you another day.